All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Union Investment Real Estate to today's Efficient Decision panel. My name is Sven Glowik. I'm a business development manager for Union Investment Real Estate, and I'm responsible for the research, monitoring, and strategic collaboration with innovative PropTechs. And just to give a few remarks on this session. As member of the evaluation and organization team, I'm really excited that we can host this event online this year, not only because we have to, thanks to the current situation, but also to find and try new ways of networking and conferencing. And with the updated application process, we are now even closer to the challenges of the industry. And the winners of this category showed us that they have profound knowledge about the processes of the real estate industry and found solutions for the key challenges of the daily work, which are decision-making processes and the usage of smart data. And someone saw the potential of that a few years ago, and he's with us since the first edition of the PropTech Innovation Award, is Maurice Grassau. He's the CEO and founder of Architrave, and he was one of the finalists in 2017 and became a valued business partner of Union Investment. And I'm very happy that you're hosting this session today and will introduce yourself and our honored guests on the panel. So Maurice, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Sven. I hope everybody can hear me well. Funny times. I want to start with a sentence, a quote that I found that captures, the current situation quite well. And the quote is, there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. And I think this captures perfectly of what we've seen in the last couple of weeks happening to us. I want to welcome everybody to this session around efficient decision making. My name is Maurice. I'm the founder and CEO of Architrave. As Sven already mentioned, I had multiple interactions with the PropTech Innovation Award as a competing startup in 2017, and then as a jury member in 2018. And today, I'm happy to moderate and host this event with Sven together. So, let's dive into it. So I think what we want to do in this session is we want to share our perspectives on, how to adjust to a changing paradigm and get the most out of this cooperation between the real estate industry and PropTechs during these trying and uncertain times. I think Union has been leading the efforts of a cooperation between those two sectors, and it shows to do the PropTech Innovation Award this year again just shows that they continue to be leading these efforts. Rahm Emanuel, the former Chicago mayor, once said, "You never want to let a serious crisis go to waste." And I think this sentence has become ubiquitous, these past 2 months in corporate circles. But it keeps the framing on the crisis itself as an inflection point. What comes after the inflection point, the months, the years, of hard transformational work that's still ahead of us, that is still undefined. That's exactly on what we want to focus today's session. The overarching theme is decision making. We all need to make better decisions faster, and we need to learn how to memorize decisions in a remote world. How do we install check and balances in a remote meeting world? So the discussions that I'm going to kick off in a couple of sentences will mainly have 3 pillars today: long-term, near-term, and a present view. So in the long-term view, we look at the system of leasing and letting. Is that fundamentally flawed? Is the inflexibility that come with like 10 years lease contracts, is there an opportunity now to change the whole system, to disrupt the whole system and build something towards a better future? Is that the time to do this right now? That's the long-term view we're going to take. the near-term view we're going to take. If you look at, remote work, long-term business transformation, for the latter, I'm hearing, less business travel, kill all manual processes, digitize every customer and supplier interaction, and enable flexible work patterns. That will surely have an impact on how lease agreements are structured and how are they done. What kind of offices are leased? What are the flexible terms that we're looking for in the future? That's the more near-term view. And then the present is the here and now. Do we actually have all the information at hand right now to make, quality decisions fast? So I'm very honored that we have a great people on the panelists that will enhance that discussion. We have PropTechs are a reflection of the real estate industry and that they're operating in. And since the real estate industry is local, the PropTechs tend to be local. So I think we are missing sometimes the more outside Germany, like a more European view on the landscape. And so today we want to take an approach that looks at the industry from a European perspective. So I'm very, very glad that we have a very healthy mix of industry experts with an international view and also some financial investment view on the panel. And I think that their different perspectives will help us get a holistic view on the three pillars: long-term, near-term, and present, in the context of the PropTechs that I'm about to introduce right now. So the panelists are, I want to welcome Tina Paillet. Are you there? Yeah, we can see you now, Tina. Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Tina is chair of the board of Europe RICS. For the people who don't know what RICS is, it's the world's leading professional body for qualification and standards in land, property, and infrastructure and construction. Tina has been working for Generali Real Estate for 9 years. She's head of global asset management with a focus on Central Eastern Europe right now, previously UK, North America. She's a member of GRE's investment committee and focusing on preparing the profession for the PropTech revolution. So thanks, Tina, for taking the time to be on the panel today.
Thanks, Maurice. Thanks for organizing.
Next is Patrick Woodall. Patrick Woodall is an investor, chairman, independent board director, and senior advisor. Patrick has done a couple of C roles and also being a CEO of a very successful company that he then sold. I met Patrick because he's been instrumental and also in the success of my company Architrave, where he serves as a non-executive board member. And we appreciate Patrick's focus on numbers and business efficiency. And Patrick, thank you very much for taking the time to be on this panel today.
Oh, it's very nice to be here. Thank you, Maurice.
Next in line is Dr. Lars Scheideker. He's the head of data management, reporting services and systems of Union Investment Real Estate. He's been at Union now for Union Investment Real Estate for 3 years. He has been working for Ernst & Young and Deka before, where he also made his PhD. And I think, looking at the panel and the PropTechs, I think he's probably the most qualified to sit on the panel today because he's also a member of a carnival association in Germany, which obviously makes him extremely qualified for the PropTech industry.
Thank you so much for this nice introduction. Thank you.
Thanks, Lars, for joining us. Thanks for taking the time. So let's get to not the other side, but the PropTech part. And I had some conversations with the PropTechs prior to this panel, and what I'm seeing is there's a new breed of CEOs and founders coming up this year. Extremely smart people, a lot of context for the market that they're operating in, not so much the learning by doing group that we had previously. So I was really surprised by their deep knowledge and drive of the industry. Really pleasant people to talk to, loads of interesting views, and I'm very excited to introduce them to you. First one up is Denis. Denis from Blocksquare. Denis is a co-founder of SBA Architecture, and he's also been leading and designing a project for the world's highest indoor ski slope. So an entrepreneur by heart. He's now co-founded Blocksquare, and I think, Denis, you're probably the best to explain what Blocksquare does to the audience.
Sure, thanks, Maurice, for the introduction. Blocksquare is essentially a platform where you can leverage blockchain technology to issue digital shares. And we discovered a couple of years ago how you can transfer a value from a real estate asset to these digital shares and how you can connect them. So our goal is to enable real estate companies that are already established to introduce digital shares as a way of co-investing in certain assets. And this is a way of basically going from like communication went from pigeons to email to messaging and fax machines before. So, and this is basically, it's the same as going into digital in terms of assets. So we started this through a blockchain lab that we established right here in this offices right now in 2016. And with my co-founders, we wanted to understand blockchain as a technology at that time, and then slowly it became a startup. We started in 2018, and yeah, we slowly been making progress with especially on creating pilots or understanding the market needs through collaboration with real estate companies.
Thank you, Denis. Next is Julian from Tower 360. Julian started his career in Asia at UBS with stops at Asia Pacific. He's founded his first company in Asia, in home nursing in Asia. He got interested in analytics and data science at reputation.com and founded Tower 360 in January 2017. So welcome, Julian, and please tell us what does Tower 360 do?
Thanks, Maurice. So Tower 360, our mission basically is to help real estate asset managers, the institutional investors, to fix their data and workflow issues. And so looking at the industry today, we see two challenges, especially the way it's structured. One is that the real estate owner outsources part of its processes to external operating partner. It could be a property manager sitting in different jurisdictions. And the data relies on different siloed systems. And so the reporting process and the aggregation of that data is very manual and time intensive. And the second issue we're seeing right now is at the landlord level, the people we're talking to, clients typically have the entire workflows on different systems that do not communicate with each other. What that means is the data doesn't flow from one system to the other. And there are a lot of manual work involved in that. And the third problem is those systems mostly are not very UI friendly. So it takes a long time to train people to use those systems. And the fallback options most of the time is Excel. So in today's time, the last 8-10 years, it was fine because real estate was making a lot of value creation through buying and selling assets and selling it at a higher price a couple of years later. But what we're seeing now, especially in the downturn coming, is that active asset management will become more and more important. And you can't do a good asset management without good tools as well. So people will have to become more data-driven. As you mentioned at the beginning, the workflows will have to be more efficient. And that's where we come into play, Tower 360. We have built two things we're helping our clients with. One is Tower 360 Connect. That's a data aggregation platform that helps not only to integrate external data providers. It could be an operating partner, but is also the glue behind your systems. It's an API management platform that you could, for example, connect an accounting system with your invoice management system and make sure those tools communicate. That's the basic we have built, the base. And then the second part is we have built a set of applications that model the core workflows of what an asset manager does. On the leasing side, the asset management reporting, or for example, portfolio management, business planning. So that end to end, if a landlord wants to work with us and not only use the APIs, you can also choose from our applications that will allow him to manage a portfolio from a single point of truth. And that's basically in a nutshell what we are doing. The value add is obviously giving back control on the data that belongs to the landlord and not to an external data provider. And I'm happy to obviously provide more inputs in the later part of the discussion.
Great, thanks, Julian. Thank you very much. Last but not least is Thorsten. Thorsten from RENTIVATE. He comes from Bremen. It's actually my hometown. Bachelor in architecture. He has been a project manager at BEOS, so BEOS is very innovative asset management company based out of Berlin, and he became now founder and CEO of RENTIVATE. So Thorsten, please, tell us what RENTIVATE does.
Thank you so much, Maurice. Thank you for hosting this amazing event together with the panelists and everyone here. Yeah, right. I come from BEOS, so I come from what we call the machine room of asset management and project development, and we founded RENTIVATE with the aim to make leasing all kinds of commercial spaces digitally become a matter of course. We want to bring a new level of flexibility into commercial leasing to accomplish what we call Agile Leasing. What we developed actually in more than like 14-month development time is an entire leasing life cycle, which is entirely digitized. So we start from, of course, digital listings and online viewings you can have, make appointments also for on-site viewings. But where we really make the difference to today's processes is you can also negotiate and close the very same contracts you're closing today, and having a legally written signature which withstands all lease terms and space types and sizes. And moreover, we saw the arise of interest in more than just the space. That's why we offer a broad variety on add-ons to spaces, always provided by external service providers like furniture leasing, cleaning services, to make it possible to have an asset manager offering the space and not worrying about the other stuff which might interfere with fund regulations and that kind of stuff. And yeah, we can adapt to existing structures of professional landlords in general, and corporates also want to sublease spaces. And yeah, currently we are amidst in fundraising, scaling up the number of listings we have, and growing the group of partners, and making the match with digital natives tenants in the first spaces we have on the platform. We launched in January, and yeah, I'm very happy to be here with a discussion. And yeah, thank you for hosting us.
Thank you, Thorsten. Thanks very much. Okay, let's dive right into it. Do you remember the three pillars, long-term, near-term, and the here and now? So I want to get back to these. I think, now more than ever, there's a need for efficient decision-making, not only for asset management in real estate, but also for asset management in real estate. And that means, the right decisions as fast as possible. I mean, that applies to everybody. So we all need an efficient system to make really fast and quality-based decisions. So I think that the PropTechs that we've heard today are enabling this, all in different ways. And these ways I want to explore a little bit further. Denis, I want to start off with you and the view that, if Corona opens up a possibility now, an opportunity, that we look at the whole process of trading assets in the future, You know, is that something? Is now the right time to talk about blockchain and use cases? Do you think that Corona opened up that opportunity?
Well, first of all, kind of Corona put into perspective that there's a possibility that a single event can affect the whole world. And that means whole economies, and that this effect can kind of travel around the world. It might have even travel not just one time, but 2 times or 3 times, or something similar could happen in the future. And this is things that kind of profoundly change how we understand the world and how we perceive the world. And maybe certain economies were kind of so focused on themselves that they didn't see that, you know, the world as a whole, and then others were kind of just left out of global trade. Now, what blockchain as a technology can provide is a layer of trust on which you can build applications that effectively can increase the ability to trade and transact. And it's not just about profits when you trade, but it's creating more resiliency. And if you imagine a world where asset managers have their assets tokenized, at least in part, I'm talking about real estate assets here, you can have investors quickly trading these assets to kind of create more resiliency for possible scenarios to come. And I think this is valued times, or important times right now, to you know, give this a serious thought, instead of just looking at how things can be done on paper, and start testing out different scenarios. And that's what we are here for, basically, is allowing non-tech companies that really do well. I mean, they're best at what they do, so they manage real estate assets. But what we can provide them is a way to digitize those assets without much involvement from their tech teams. And in this respect, I think tokenization of real estate assets is something that asset managers will kind of start investing in more, or researching more, in the next 10 years, because the possibilities that it provides have not been researched enough, I would say. And then the mindset of the people who this technology is for, maybe now they changed their mindsets, and that's, I think, the first step to digital adoption, in a way.
Let me jump to the mindset, because there's one thing that stuck to my head when we had the preliminary discussion, that you said, like, if you cannot use the internet with yourself, because that's the intranet. Everybody needs to be part of it, and then it becomes the internet. So I think the thing that I'm trying to get my head around is, it's not Union that can buy your software. It's the whole industry that needs to agree on a standard. And you know, Tina, if I'm looking at Rick's and your efforts of trying to get a global standard in multiple areas of real estate asset management, you know, what is it that you can, you know, what advice would you give somebody like Denis to try to get a new standard into the system of global real estate players?
Yeah, great question, Maurice. Thanks. I think I maybe just make it just a bit wider, and how, you know, blockchain, and therefore, Denis, your solution on blockchain, obviously, as you were saying, will be creating trust. Because it's a system that's interconnected. It's a system that keeps, you know, logs of time sequences. It's immutable. So you're creating trust. But other things are necessary to create trust. And when you're investing online, maybe a small token in an asset across the world from where you are, because I see the opportunity for your tool to be opening up markets to, real estate was an asset class where you had to have deep pockets. And now you're saying, maybe I can buy a 1/100th of a flat in New York, and I don't have to be, it's like, it can be a small purchase. But trust is also based on being able to understand and to be able to be certain of what you're buying. And it's all about the information that you're going to be putting on your system in order to transact these assets. It's all about letting people do their proper due diligence, but in a format that they can recognize. So things like what the RICS is working on are data standards to measure surface areas, okay? I mean, what's the difference between a surface area measured in New York City, we were just talking about, where they measure condominiums to the edge of the gargoyle, or a surface area in a flat in Spain where they can actually count in the surface area a swimming pool or parking lot that's a kilometer away from the building you're selling. So standards so that you know what you're buying. And I'm just giving an example because, we have what we call IPMS, which is International Property Measurement standards that the RICS has been proning. But for me, it seems really important. There's also valuation standards. There's also land measurement standards. There's property measurement standards. And then there are all the standards of the services provided. How well is this property managed? You're buying part of a flat, you want to know if it's being managed well. You want to know if, how is the rent roll looking? When are the lease breaks, etc. And that's where I think I would say add into, if you don't already have it, because I know you haven't been able to explain everything, but if you don't already have it in Blocksquare, think about adding in a series of standards for the assets that are being traded on your platform. Standards that are international, that are trusted. And then you have a win-win possibility.
Yeah, maybe I can put the next question to Lars because Union Investment is also looking into standards, and maybe you can give a hint what your needs are when you're looking into data, and maybe also into the things you are dealing with at the moment, according maybe to risk analysis or something. Is there something you can address to the PropTechs to help companies like Union Investment to digitize and structure their data even more?
Yes, of course. Thank you. Yes, currently we have many challenges due to the Corona crisis, and our asset management have the overall responsibility for the property performance. Therefore, they need all the information and data which influence directly or indirectly the performance. Among other things, they needed data sets, covers information, for example, tenant management, for example, letting performance, lettable area information regarding current construction measures, refurbishments, key performance indicators for monitoring the service level of our property managers, market research data to support scenario analysis and something like that. Currently, due to the Corona crisis, we are and our asset managers are very interested and focused performance indicators for our tenant management. So, for example, potential or agreed rent extensions, or the current rent arrears or outstanding rent receivables, performed rent reductions, for example, and of course the current credit standing of our tenants. Yeah, these are the main indicators that we are using for our performance measurement and especially for our management decisions. And this is only a couple of examples, but the main challenge is that the data is available, the data is but not fully integrated in our system landscape. So we need data deliveries from our property managers, out of Germany. And so we have a delivery delay of more or less 3 or 4 weeks to get this information. So we have, in my opinion, it's not a question of data availability, it's a question of data currency, data timeliness. We need these informations quicker, faster than before. And that is what we have realized or we have learned during the Corona crisis, that the data is there, but we need the data faster into our systems or for better decisions into our management system.
Great, thank you. I want to get to Thorsten, and you know, I think what people realized also is that that the 10 years lease agreements, you know, and then if something happens, doesn't provide the flexibility that, you know, probably asset managers need right now. So how do you look at this process, and does Corona sort of like push for a different solution in that process?
Yeah, I think when we look at the situation in the market right now, we can also, besides of Corona, we can look back at the past 20 years and see the average lease term decreased in office section from 7 years to 4.5 years. So we already lost like 1/3 of average lease term. And looking at my co-founder Mario, who comes from a very big German e-commerce company corporate, we know that those companies still like long lease contracts to be able to save the attractive spaces, which are like always a lack of. But also they have internal vacancies around 10%. And the last month we talked to so much corporates who said, yeah, 10% sounds like an optimistic number actually. And so there's on the one side a need for the corporates, for the actual users of spaces to utilize spaces unused, to be able to sublease. And on the other side, there might be all growing demand in smaller spaces, but there's multiple possibilities to actually fulfill this demand. So I think what currently asset managers and also basically everyone managing a space should be developing better solutions in is having the processes in line to be able to lease spaces faster to tenants on a solid data basis, which should be available, which is always what you said, Lars. I experienced it myself. You need a specific report, you want to know about a specific space, but you just wait for things to send over to you. There's not one system to look inside and actually to have overview over your assets. And so should there be more solutions, and should there be new approaches to leasing to make it agile like almost all other industry sectors are? I think yes.
I think Julian was nodding a lot when Lars was talking about his current challenge. Before we get to Julian, I'd love Patrick, your view as an so you've seen some of the challenges regarding like standardization and so on, and you know, what do you see as an investor? Has Corona changed anything around the advice you're giving to companies when it comes to sort of like runway and cash scenarios? What do you see from a private equity investment money perspective? How does Corona change the PropTech cooperation with industry players? You know, what are you seeing?
Well, I think from the perspective of an investor, the first thing I would say is that there's an awful lot of money out there prior to coronavirus that was looking for a home. You know, a lot of private equity and venture capitalists have raised a lot of money in their funds. Asset prices have been quite high, and finding an appropriate home for their money has been quite difficult. I think what coronavirus has done, which all seismic events do, is it's made people very nervous. Valuations on assets in terms of investing in startups is extremely difficult. Funding rounds at the moment have, I think, become much more challenging. But I guess what I think is important is what you spoke about earlier, Maurice, which is that in order to gain an alignment between the people who are investors in PropTechs and in particular in startups such as myself, alignment between their potential client base, which is the property and real estate companies, and the businesses themselves. What I think we've got to do is we've got to see the relevance of their solutions to improving resilience in times when what we've learned is the old paradigms actually are not necessarily as appropriate. So when Thorsten talks about the fact that lease terms have come down, I mean, when I started in the industry, the typical lease term for a commercial real estate property, such as a shop, was around about 25 years. It's now down to 5 years in many cases. But how can we make that even more flexible, yet still give the certainty to the asset owner that they're going to get an adequate yield, so that it makes it an investable opportunity? And I think it's interesting that Thorsten's business model actually provides for superior yields on shorter term contracts in certain areas where surplus space can be used. And I think if you look both at Julian and Denis's business models, they both have relevance in the short term for this idea of improving decision making, making it easier and quicker for asset owners and their various client bases to produce better solutions, whether that be by tokenization, which is an extremely interesting concept because it allows multiple owners of single properties on a very secure basis, or in Julian's case, providing data management that is superior to the generic outsourced solutions. So I think what we're all looking for at the moment are those types of solutions that are relevant to the short term, but also have the capacity to scale to the long term. And I think one of the key words I would use is scalability. You mentioned it earlier, Maurice. I think the fact of the matter is these solutions, and Tina mentioned it, do need to have some type of universal application. It's difficult to be an investor in something that's very niche in the PropTech market. So I'd argue that the relevance to this resilience and flexibility is important to be investable, but also the scalability.
Great, great insight. Julian, from just to pick up from what Patrick just said, what do you see, happening post-COVID, and how can we protect the viability of real estate companies?
Yeah, so thanks a lot. So I think in terms of like the short term, like obviously COVID has impacted the real estate. What happens afterwards, there's still a lot of uncertainty around how the real estate market is going to get hit. It depends a lot on how this virus is going to spread. What we are doing at Tower 360 is to help real estate owners manage the crisis in the short term, but also be more competitive in the long term or midterm to have a better control of the data. Is like two things. On the short term side, we're helping real estate owners to get better insight and be more data driven. So that means also getting access to risk management dashboards, be able to see where the rent outstanding is and see the industry exposure walls, but not only on the rental income side, but also on the liquidity side, such as LTV ratios and others. That is one part we're doing, and obviously the tenant. So we have launched a tenant relationship management module that will help real estate owners to gather all the data at a company level, because the contract level is less interesting than the company level. And that is what we have launched recently, and that helps people to be more proactive and keep a track on their tenants discussion, as it is mostly outsourced, as I mentioned at the beginning. In the medium and long term, what we are seeing is, as Lars mentioned, is the ability to have a future-proof tech stack. And what it means is that to have a system that is to have an API management system that allows you as well to collect the data from your property managers and your external partners. And this is a challenging concept, and it actually goes back also to that standardization discussion, where it's very hard to establish a standard. It's very hard to enforce a standard because everyone has their own standards. So technology needs to be an enabler here. And there are two ways actually to go ahead. And we've been talking with many landlords across Europe. And the ideal way is you have a landlord that uses one system and says you should work on that. and you should work on that system. You should do the entirety of the reporting in there, but it's very hard to enforce because there are the existing contracts with your external data providers, and the right time to do that is mostly when you're actually buying a portfolio, so you can enforce new standards. But on the other hand, in the meantime, that's why we're offering both options with our platform, is we have user permissions allowing you to do the reporting there, but on the other hand, we're also offering the data aggregation part, where you'd say, I have a rent roll in Madrid and I have a rent roll in London, and the tool, the platform, is doing the aggregation, and not I'm enforcing a standard and you say you have to report in that standard, which is extremely hard to do, in my opinion. So I would be very interesting to know what will happen, obviously, but we think that the trend is going to go towards enabling people to work on a platform and enforcing you know, that reporting inside of one platform, and that obviously needs some mindset change as well. Landlords will have to enforce certain things that you know, haven't happened in the past, and it would be interesting to hear what the panel thinks about that.
Me too. Unfortunately, we only have 4 minutes left. I mean, I think it's just shown of a great conversation that, you know, you come to an end so quickly, and I'm sorry that it has to be so abruptly right now. But I think I want to use the last 2-3 minutes to just see if there are some questions from the audience that we'll tackle before we close this. Sven, is there a way to get some questions from the audience?
Actually, in my browser, the Slido module doesn't work. Hopefully, I can have our tech team putting up some questions for us.
No worries. I have loads. I just thought I open it up. Lars, I think from you know, looking at the real estate industry, and the real estate industry being so atomized, you know, nobody owns more than 2 to 3% market share. The importance of standardization becomes bigger and bigger. I mean, Julian hit on it. Everybody hit on it. You know, what is your view on how can we speed up? Because technology, you know, we want you guys to have a standard that makes it easier for us technology people to provide you with the solution you want. Why don't you agree on a standard quicker?
That's a very good question, Maurice. Yeah, obviously, any kind of standardization is, as we mentioned before, very difficult and cannot be realized in a few weeks. So I would recommend, and that is what we do at Union Investment, to develop and establish an industrial standard together with other market players. This explains, for example, especially our engagement in the activities of GIF, Gesellschaft für Immobilienwirtschaftliche Forschung. Maybe you can translate it a little bit later. In connection with the competence group data management. And in this competence group, we have developed together with other real estate asset managers, property managers, PropTechs, consulting companies, the first data management standard for exchanging document files. And yes, I have to admit, it doesn't sound very sexy, and it isn't very sexy, document standards. But so far, our business is still a business of unstructured data and information in files and documents. And so I'm convinced that this concept and this approach is the good and sustainably successful solution in the full knowledge. You like it, I know, that in medium time, hopefully, we will cooperate with our business partners from start to finish during the business relationship with standardized structured data with without any handwritten and physically signed documents. But that is the future, and we need some more
I think you're
technologies in
breaking
this
up there,
case,
Lars.
in this way to the future. So
Yes.
bring all the market players together on a table, give them only a few weeks and say, okay, then we need a solution, and maybe it's a good idea. With GIF, in my opinion, it works. It's a hard way, but it works.
All right. I think we have just one more minute to answer one of the questions of our viewers.
I
They
have
sent in.
finished.
They sent in.
I
How do
can't
you see the tech?
anymore.
Can the others hear me?
I think we are out.
No,
Maybe?
Hello?
Sven, we can hear you. What's the question from the audience?
All right.
Can you
How
hear
do you see
me,
the
Maurice?
tech ecosystem, and are
Sven?
there synergies and cooperations or mergers?
Lars, we can hear you, but you're breaking up. Sorry, Sven.
Yeah. So just again, there's a question of one of the viewers, and they asked, how do you see the tech ecosystem evolving, and are there any synergies and cooperations or even mergers? Maybe that is questions for Tina or Patrick. Maybe you want to answer, as you are invested in companies or have the overall view.
Patrick, maybe go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the answer to that question is that it will have to evolve, because one thing that a crisis like coronavirus does is it puts immense financial pressure onto businesses, and where there's inefficiency in a business model, there's inevitably going to be failures. There's bound to be more collaborations. We've seen that actually recently. We're seeing it in Architrave where there's bigger collaborations. And there's certainly going to be mergers and acquisitions. That has to be, because what coronavirus and such seismic changes does is it puts enormous pressure. But that is something that I think that is a healthy sign. I worry, frankly, that in an environment like this, that the danger is that the assets that are put together, the businesses that are merged or formed together or collaborate, are done on a basis of a necessity rather than the synergistic benefits for the client. And so I personally will watch very carefully to make sure that it's not just about stripping cost out, it's about delivering benefits to the ultimate client. That's the reason for doing it, not just something that saves immediate cost.
Right.
Great point.
All right. It's a pity, but I think we have to stop for now. As I listen to the conversation, it is very interesting, and I want to prolong that, but unfortunately we have run out of time. Thank you very much from my side, and maybe Maurice, you want to close the session with remarks.
Yeah, no, I really want to thank everybody. I estimate that we as a business world, we got back something like 2,500,000 hours per day by not having us to try and find the available conference room in our buildings, and maybe another million of hours of day we saved by not having to subtly move around outside the conference room window in an agitated fashion, trying to hint the current occupants to wrap it up. So I think we're getting to we were all using this time now, and we will get out the other end much stronger and better than we got in. I'm 100% sure of this. So a special thanks to the outstanding panel for their perspectives today, and I'm sure that we were able to show that this new breed of founders and CEO with their deep knowledge and great insights is something that we'll see much more of in the future. So thank you guys, pleasure to meet you, and thank you very much also for the audience in listening and joining for the session. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And stay healthy and safe, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.